Hi all and welcome to my channel. Today it's all about kitten cats made on a 22-pin circular knitting machine, and that's the only machine you need. Colour palette for this 22-pin Roly Poly Pussycat is white and grey, okay? So I'm going with Emu Classic Aran in white and a Tweed Aran Fleck yarn in this grey colour, which is shade M006830. For this project you're going to need a scissors, a 30cm long pipe cleaner, a tapestry needle, some yarn for the facial details, some stuffing and some 8mm safety eyes and an 8mm safety nose, but you could always embroider those on later if you prefer, bearing in mind that safety eyes are not always suitable for young children. All the row counts will be at the end of the video, which you can jot down for your own use. So let's get started. So with our 22-pin circular knitting machine ready to go and with our white yarn, let's cast on. Yarn into the yarn feeder, and to start our project we are going to knit 12 rows. So for this project we are going to knit 12 rows in white, 56 rows in the grey and another 12 rows in white. Changing to the other colour now, join these together and crank now until you get to row 68. Row 68, change colours to the white again and do another 12 rows, which will take you up to row 80. And here we are at row 80, and now it's time to cast off. So cut a long tail. 12 to 18 inches is usually fine for the 22 pins. So pop your tail on a darning needle and just pick up every stitch. And there we are, our work is off the machine. Let's knit up some other pieces. Next we'll knit all the parts needed to make our Roly Poly Pussycat. So for the ears you need to knit 4 rows and knit 2 lots of that. For the tail you need to knit 20 rows and I've split mine 5 white and 15 grey. For the rear paws knit 5 rows and do 2 of those. And for the front paws, knit 6 rows and do 2 of those. Next we move on to assembling our Roly Poly 22-pin Pussycat. So moving on to our main body piece, and this is the 80 rows that we knitted earlier, okay? And I did 12, 56, 12. Remember to tie your colour joints together. So we'll do that now. I tie them quite tightly. And then you can snip those yarn tails off, put them in your scrappy pile, which I do and I use for stuffing. And then we're going to do what we normally do with the beanie and put one side inside the other. And line up those joins, okay, so you've got white with white and grey with grey. Try not let that grey show through, it does shift inside sometimes. And then we are going to line our tails up. There's our tails there, so make sure they're lined up. and then cinch the inner one. And I put my finger in there sometimes to aim that cinch like that. Cinch that nice and tight. And the same with the other side. I'm going to pull that tail through there. Don't need it through there. There we go. And what we're going to do now is tie those together. Make sure that my inside is nice and neat as well, which it is. So tie these nice and snugly together now with a couple of good strong knots. But bearing in mind we need to leave a little hole if we're going to be using the safety nose, okay? Because leaving a tiny little hole like that in the center will help immensely when we thread our little nose through. If you're not using a safety nose, then of course you can cinch it up as tightly as you want to. So I'm going to snip that off. So I'm not going to tie as tightly as I normally would, just a little knot like that to secure it, and I'm going to leave that tiny little hole there, as you can see, for my nose. So I'm just going to turn mine inside out, and I'm going to even out that end as much as I can. So making sure now that we get as many of those folds out as we possibly can, okay, by wiggling it and jiggling it. Next we're going to add the eyes and the nose. Now the nose is pretty simple to add, and I'm using a black one for my project. On my first prototype here, my little brown one, or my little ginger one rather, I used a brown nose because he's a ginger little boy, so he's got a little ginger nose. But this one we're going for a grey one in memory of my dolly cat. So I'm going to put the black nose smack bang in the middle there like that. I could go for a pink nose as well, but I've decided on a black one this time. So we're going to pop the nose, easy peasy, straight through the middle. We left a little hole and just secure it at the back. Got a clip here, and I'm just going to pop it on. Pop it on, pop it on. There we go. Let's clip it on. There we go. Job done. There it is. All clipped on the back there, if you can see it all clipped on. There we are, and my tail's left. So there's our little nose in place there. Now, doesn't matter where you put the nose at the moment, as in centralizing it, but it will when you add the eyes, okay? So keep your top of your nose there nice and central, and now we are going to add the eyes. So we're going to place the eyes a centimetre up from the corner of the nose, so a centimetre or so up from the corner of the nose, and about 2 centimetres apart. So I'm going to eyeball the first one, excuse the pun. So the first one I'm going to pop roughly there. Like that, because it will spread out when we stuff it as well, of course. And then I'm going to get my little ruler here, and I'm going to roughly, yeah, okay, roughly there then. About there like that. And like I did with the large one, you can put a little bit of stuffing in there if you want to check how it's going to look when it's stuffed. I think that's about right. The one thing I am going to do, because these are very small, I didn't with the nose, because that's nicely anchored through the hole. I'm going to cut a tiny little piece of felt to go behind each of these eyes. So I've got a tiny piece of felt here where I've been practicing some embroidery. And I'm just going to cut 2 little squares. Doesn't have to be exact. I think they're going to be about 1 centimetre squares, and this is my little way of a little bit of added security. And what I do then is put a little snip in the centre like that, and a little snip in the centre of that one, and I put that then behind the eyes on the stem, and then I add the safety backing on there. So I'm going to pop in there now, grab my eye. So as you can see, I pop it on the back there like that. Okay, that's what I do. So put the felt there like that, and then grab your back, and then pop that on the back of the eye like that, and skewer it in place until it goes click. And we need to do that now with the other eye. There we are, that's great. And that embeds a little bit then in the face as well. Let's make sure I'm happy with those eyes positioning there. Yeah, should be about okay. So another piece of felt on the back there like that. And the clip. Fasten on till it goes clip. There we go. That didn't go clip, but it is in place there, as you can see there. So there's our eyes on our face done. So all we need to do now is to stuff it. But before we stuff it, we need to add a drawstring around the other end. So grab a length of yarn of your matching colour of your body there. And I'm going to start at the bottom, which is going to be the bottom of the cat there. And I'm going to go under 2 stitches, over 2, under 2, over 2, all the way around. Back to the beginning and leave your tails. I'm going to pull that tail through a little bit more so it's a little bit more even and we're not going to lose it when we stuff it. So now we need to grab our stuffing, fluff it as we always do because it does get a little bit compacted, and we're going to start with the end of the face so we can really stuff that face out and hopefully get rid of any of those wrinkles, and we'll end up with a nice flattish face like this little pussycat here. I need a name for him, by the way, so if you can think of a name, then put it in the comments. Right, I'm pushing this now down the bottom and pushing with my hand like that, okay, to push that in and stuffing it in down there and even out all those gathers and wrinkles, and always seems to be easier on the 22 than it is on the 46 and the 48 for me anyway. So push behind the eyes to pad it all the way out for a few seconds, and then you should end up with something that looks reasonably smooth like that. When you're happy with that, continue and stuff the rest of your cat's body, and then we just need to cinch that end up and tie it off with a couple of stitches and a couple of knots, and we're done. Make sure that stuffing is nice and even with no air holes in it and divots like that to make it look uneven. We want a nice plump pussycat. Push it out to the edges, wriggle and wiggle him. I need a tiny bit more stuffing for the end. Checking that face again to make sure it's as flat as we can possibly get it, because it's going to be easier for putting on the facial details later. Grab a little more stuffing. My last piece of stuffing. And I should be fine and dandy now to cinch up and tie off. We have a plump little pussycat. So you know what to do, and if you don't, just follow my lead here. Just grab your tails and pull them together nice and tight. And you can tie them with a knot like that until you get it as cinched as you possibly can. You might not get it totally cinched, in which case you can add a few stitches to close that hole all the way up, and this hole we do need to close all the way up. Okay, so if you do end up with a very small hole, a couple of little stitches will finish that off. I'm going to use one of my tails just to make sure that everything is nicely cinched off, and you can see I've got a tiny little hole there, so I can run around the top there like that. I don't think I'm going to pick up every stitch, as many as I can. Around like that, back to the other tail, and we cinch that in again, and that's great. So another couple of knots to totally cinch that completely shut, and then we can hide our tails inside the body, and we are done with the little body. Wasn't that quick? There we go. So that's nice and cinched closed. So we can push our tails through there and snip those off. Keep the tails if they're long like these, because you may be able to use them later for stitching on various parts. I'm always kind of frugal with my makes. I like to try and use everything if I can. So snippy snip snips. And that body is done. So what we have now is a little roly-poly sausage. There we go. And he's nice and evenly stuffed. We've got a nice plump little bum and a nice flat little face. So let's move on and we can prepare the ears. What we're going to do is cinch one end closed first so we can see where we're going. So grab one tail and cinch that closed until you get a nice little circle. and then partially cinch the other side until it's about 2 centimeters wide. It will curl on you, but a little bit of patience and it'll be okay. So there we go. There's the one cinched circle in the center, and we're going to pop that on a darning needle now, our tail, and put a little knot in that to secure. Keep the tail because we'll be using that in a moment. There's a tail and a little knot. Great, so we can leave that. So we're going to move to the other side now, which we're going to partially cinch to about 2 centimeters. Feed that under there, make a little loop, and cinch in to about 2 centimeters. So keep rolling those edges in because they will want to roll outwards, and we want to try and get that as neat as we can. So push all those little rivulets inside like that. Get it as smooth as you possibly can. Push those down. And we're going to stitch across there now. Let's grab my ruler. And when we're about 2 centimeters, we can stitch across. I'm going to cinch that just a little bit more. There we go, like that. And push all those little bits in with your needle, all those little loops that come from the stitches, because this is such a small piece. And then stitch across the bottom to seal that up. Only a few stitches to close it. Push that little bit of a stitch in there to hide it so you don't get any lumpy bumpy bits. And we can put a knot on the end then, our final stitch, and keep that tail because that'll be handy for stitching on to the head of our pussycat very shortly. So put the other tail back on the darning needle now, and we're going to work this end. Now it'll automatically curl a little bit like that, okay, so you'll get a little curly bit, and that's what we want, okay. So curl it in on itself like that, and we're going to mattress stitch down a tiny little bit, probably no more than 1 centimeter down like that, pulling that in as we go a little bit, and we're going to form a tiny little ear this way, okay. And then check how you've gone. That's not too bad. So it is about 2 or 3 stitches down you're going to mattress stitch. Okay, so that's great. Now pop that yarn back up to the top. Okay, because at the moment, to my eye, that is not pointy enough for a pussycat ear. So my way around it, I'm trying to get this to point, because it wouldn't, is to add some horizontal stitches from back to front across the top, a little bit like darning, I guess. So back and forth until you get a little bit of a point, and because you're using exactly the same yarn, it just melds in. So keep on going with a few little stitches like that, back and forth, building up those layers until you get a little bit of a point on the top of the ear. And again, it's a little bit by eye. I can't give you a row count for that. You're going to have to kind of eyeball it and until you're happy with the result that you get. And once you're happy, you can tie that off. So it's a little bit like darning, like I've already mentioned. There you go. And there we have a tiny little pointy ear. Okay, so that's what you need to do in order to get the point, if you want a point, that is. And then you can pull your tail through there like that and drag it down there somewhere in the layers, and then you can trim that off. We don't need that tail, but keep the other tail for sewing onto the head of the pussycat very shortly, and that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to use my little crochet hook end to form that into a nice pointy little shape, and let's attach them to the head of our pussycat. So here is my pussycat, okay, and I've already done one ear, as you can see, and this is the other one. I'm going to grab another pin now, and I'm going to push my little ear onto the top of his head like that and pin it into place. And that's kind of where I'm going with my pussycat ears. And if you want to put your ears in a different position, then you go with what makes you happy. So we are going on the edge of the white line there, with the back of the ear right on the edge of the white line like that. Okay, and the ears are approximately 2.5 centimeters apart along the top of the head there. Like I said, they're aligned on the grey and the white join. Okay, so all you need to do now is grab your tail and mattress stitch around in order to secure them. So mattress stitch into place, pushing your needle into the stuffing if you can to grab a little bit for extra stability, and work your way all the way around. Tighten that mattress stitch as you're working around, finish off with a knot, and hide your tails inside your work. And do exactly the same thing for the other ear. And when finished, he should look something like this. Let's move on to the legs. Moving on to the front paws, and I've opted to do one in white and one in the grey to match the body colour. And what we're going to do is to fit those underneath, and we're going to have different colours on the front there like that. But you can go with the same colour if that's what you'd like to do. So in order to prepare the front paws, let's work with white for a change. And what we're going to do is we're going to cinch again, and again these are very, very fiddly pieces. So cinch one end until it starts to make a little bit of sense and you start to get that circle. And then we kind of feel like we win in a little bit. And cinch the other side until you get a circle. That's what we're aiming for. And it is curling in on itself. So cinch that and cinch the other. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed the one tail from the one side through to the back. So we've got both tails coming out the one side. So cinch the one side shut and cinch the other side shut. And like I said, it's quite a fiddly widdly piece. And making a circle isn't always easy because it doesn't really want to make a circle, but we're going to have to do that. So let's cinch these two together and tie them together. Now it doesn't matter if you've got a slight hole one side, but you have to make sure that it's fully closed the other, okay? So do your best to do that. I'm going to do mine with a double knot. And let's see how stitched we are. I'm happy with that. If you get that kind of result, that'll be fine. There's no need to worry about anything else. Okay. So with the two tails there, I've snipped one already, and you can snip the other one off like that, and keep one of the tails because we're going to be putting a little drawstring around the outer edge of our circle. So make it as circly as you possibly can, but as you're working around, don't worry about these tails. They're going to be buried in with the stuffing. Outside edge, and two, and two, and two. So under two and over two, leave a tail. Work your way all the way around, and as you do, you will find the edge of that circle like that. Pull that out a little bit to get that out, because it will want to wrinkle in on itself. So just do your best to find the outer edge there, right back to where you started from. That's great. So what we're going to need now is a tiny little bit of stuffing. That's why we're not worried about those tails, because they're going to be buried inside. So pop your finger in like that and gather it around your finger, and you'll end up with a little cup shape. Okay, and it's ever so small. And we're going to grab a tiny little bit of stuffing now. So here's a tiny little bit of stuffing. Pop that in the middle there like that, and gather your tails up. Now there's no need to cinch all the way. We don't want it to be cinched all the way. What we are aiming for is a cup shape with a hole in the top, and probably about 1 centimetre will be fine. So grab those tails and grab that in like that, and you can pop your stuffing in then as it comes like that. So aim to leave about 1 centimetre hole if you can, and tie that off. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, and that'll be our little itty bitty teacup shaped front bobble paw, or a bun feet or something like that they're called, aren't they? There we go, that'll do. And then you can shape it into a little bun shape, and using the tip of my crochet hook there, I'm going to push that stuffing down into there like that. There we go, and that's what we're heading for. Here's a tiny little bun foot, and when it's done it'll be approximately 2.5 centimeters across and approximately 2.5 centimeters high. But if you get 3 by 3 centimeters, that'll be absolutely fine as well. But make the other one now exactly the same size. Okay, and you can remove one of the tails, the short one there. Now we can just snip that short. Don't worry about hiding it, because we can hide that then when we attach it to the underneath of our pussycat. So prepare the other one now exactly the same way. Moving on to preparing the back paws, which are 5 rows. We need to cinch one end completely closed and partially cinch the other side. Okay, so find your tail and cinch that closed. And then once you've got a bit of a circle, it makes a little bit more sense. And with the other one, we're going to cinch that partially to about 2.5 to 3 centimeters wide on that cinched area there. Okay, so partially cinch that, put in all those loops inside. So on the totally cinched area, pull it tight and add a couple of stitches to hold it in place, and keep the tail on there because we'll be using that shortly. And on the other side, once you get to that 2.5 to 3 centimeter cinch across the top there, push all those little stitches in to tidy that up as much as you can, and those stitches as much as you can. And that loop on the end there, I always take my needle through there because we don't need that loop to be covered. Like that. And once you've got it to about 2.5, that's about it. Make sure all these are all pushed in there like that. I'm going to just overcast with a slip stitch all the way across the top there like that. And finish with a knot. And we can just feed that in there then like that to hide it a little bit. Actually, you could just chop it off because it's going to be folded inside now when we form the foot. So I'm going to trim that off. There we go, we don't need that now. Once you've sealed off that end and cut off your tail, you'll have a little cuppy shape, and we need to fold in one side like that. It's like a third, and then wrap that third over that third like that. Then pop that tail onto a darning needle. Just grab mine now. And we're going to mattress stitch down the length of the paw. Might have to refold mine now because I should have threaded that in at the first point. So as neatly as you can, fold it into 3 like that. I'm going to put a little stitch across the top to start, and then just mattress stitch down as best I can, because the stitches don't always line up on this kind of fold. You might get better line up than I've got here. So all the way down to the bottom, and that'll form our little foot. And this is the back foot. We've already done the two little bun feet for the front of the cat, or the kitten cat. There we go. And when we're at the end, then there's our little foot. This is going to be the end that fastens onto the underside of the cat. So I'm just going to put a couple of little knots in there and leave the tail, because that'll be handy for sewing on very, very shortly. And there we go. Move that seam to the underneath of your work so it's not seen so much, and there we have one little footy and two little footies. So now we stick these now onto the rear of our kitten cat. So moving on to attaching the feet to the underside of the kitten cat. This is the first one I made, and as you can see, we're going to follow that line in the joins there, okay, with our two little bun feet. And the bun feet then are approximately 3.5 centimeters apart, and the back feet then are approximately 5 centimeters apart. Okay, so that's what we're working towards. 5 centimeters, and again 4 centimeters from front to back, 4 centimeters from front to back. So let's work on that. We leave our little kitty cat upside down there. He's enjoying the sunshine at the moment. So let's do the same with this little brother. We'll do the front paws first. So tail on a darning needle, and let's position one. Make sure they're central with the eyes. That's what I'm going for. So to line up my paw there with the eyes, as you can see there, that kind of look there. So I'm kind of happy with that, and the colour join does help. And as you start stitching in, this will pull the size of the paw in a little bit. So down into the bodywork, grabbing some stuffing like I always say, and mattress stitch all the way around. Put it down on the table so I can see what I'm doing a bit better. Pull that mattress stitch in, down into the stuffing and back up, into the paw. Check your position as you go to make sure the foot is lining up more or less with the eye like that, okay? Here we are, our little bun foot is coming along nicely. Back round to where you started, and then you can tie off with a knot and hide your tails. Back where I started from. Pull that mattress stitch in, happy with that. And bury my tail in the work there. Snip it off. And there's our little bun foot. As you can see, it does pull in once you've sewn it onto the body, and I'm on the line there between my colour joins. So go ahead now and attach your other little foot, and I'm going to be attaching mine there like that. Okay, so mine are going to be, like I've already said, but let's do a little quick recap, approximately 3 centimeters apart at the front. And there's my little bun feet attached to the front of my little kitten cat. They are slightly closer together than the other one, but it is what it is with handmade. You will get slight discrepancies and slight differences between them. So mine have actually ended up about 2 centimeters apart, but 2 to 3 centimeters will be absolutely fine. It might be that my eyes are slightly different, so I've lined them up more with the eyes. So let's go and fit the back ones now. So we've already made our back little paws, and what we want to do with these is we want them to stick out at the side like that, with the seams facing downwards, okay? So that's what we want, is them to be downwards like that. Okay, so you may want to grab a couple of pins. Let's do one first. About there's about right. So we want it to be sticking out like that on the side of the cat, okay? So we want to be stitching it in at a slight angle, and we're going to be stitching across the top. Where it meets the body is what's important, okay, for this one. So we need to stitch wherever the paw meets the body, it needs to be stitched, okay? And then we're going to place that one exactly the same place. Make sure that they're symmetrical on the sides, not one up and one down. That's a little extreme, I know, but you know, make sure that they're as close to perfect as you can possibly get. And once you're happy with that, they're going to sit something like that on the underside of your pussycat. Okay, and you need to just stitch them in place. So I'm going to put my tail on a darning needle now and do just that. And with this one, make sure that you keep checking the position of the paw, especially against where it sits on your tabletop or your work surface. These little pieces are so small that the stitches are quite hard to grab. So again, make sure that it's sitting on the table as you stitch. Every few stitches, check it. It's easier than having to unpick and stitch all the way around. Wherever the paw meets the body, that's where you stitch. You don't want the paw to be flopping about. You want it to be quite snug to the body. Pull that mattress stitch in, checking my position, and that little paw is sitting just nicely for what I want. So now it doesn't take long to do this one at all. A few little stitches, job done. So that's one paw already connected to our little kitty cat or kitten cat. So again with this one now, with the seam facing downwards, there's the seam. So we're going to pop that down to the table, position our paw there like that. That's round about right. So we're going to do exactly the same thing now and just stitch them into place. Pull that mattress stitch, check our position. I'm happy with that. You can see the little paw there and the little paw there, looking reasonably symmetrical on the underneath there. So just tie off now with a knot and hide your tail as we always do. Little knot, hide the tail. And talking of tails, that's what we're going to do next. Is the last part of the body appendages is the tail, and then the very last thing is to add the facial details, and our little kitten cat will be finished. So moving on to the tail, don't forget, if you've opted to do the colour change, which is 15 grey and 5 white, or whatever colour combination you choose to do, don't forget to join your colour changes, okay, or it will all unravel. So turn it the right side out and stretch it like that. And what we're going to do is to cinch both ends tightly closed like that, and we are going to add a knot to secure that. Make sure that's nicely cinched there, because this is going to be the tip of the tail. Our little kitten cat is going to have a little white tip to his tail, so we're going to put a little knot there like that. Leave the tail, because when we're mattress stitching now, we can use the white to do the white part and the grey to do the grey part. I've got a little bit of a loop there, but I will hide that when I'm stitching up a mattress stitch. And grab the tail the other side, there we go, and do exactly the same thing, cinch that up so we end up with a little tube. There we go, and we'll add a little knot there as well. Now this is where your muscles are going to come in a little bit, okay, so stretch those muscles, little stitch in the end there to secure that cinch. There we go. Right, now then you've got a little tube. So we've got our tail on there. Now this is where the 30cm length of this wire comes in handy, okay? So I'm going to squidge in both ends because they're a little bit on the sharp side like that to hide that. Okay, and we are going to measure it really in the centre there and bend it. And bend it again. So bend it until you get a length, okay? And then you can bend that one up. I'll take that little bend on the end down because it doesn't matter, we're going to be rolling it around, and then twist it, okay? Twist and twist and twist that wire. Now if you've got craft wire, you can use that as well, but I'm using what I've got to hand at the moment. And bend those sharp bits in as well, although they will be cushioned quite a lot now by the time we finish this roly-poly for the tail. So there's our tail wire all roly-polyed up. So pop that in the middle there like that, and this is where we need to roll really, really tightly, okay? So as tightly as you can, roll around that wire. Roll and roll and roll until you get a very, very thin sausage roll. And stretch it as well if you can. Stretch it around like that and make it as small and as thin as you can. And I'm going to grab a fabric clip that I use for sewing, and I'm going to put a clip around there like that to hold that in place. And I'm going to pull that around, and I'm going to do the same higher up. These are very handy, but you could use a peg. A normal clothes peg would work just for this job, or even a couple of pins. So stretch it around as much as you can to make it as thin as you can, and you should get it reasonably thin. Actually, that's not too bad at all. So a really tight roll on that, and then grab your ends around to tidy that up. Now we've already got our grey, well I have anyway, on my darning needle. So tidy that end up with a couple of stitches, and then we're going to mattress stitch up the length of our tail. Now this is the end that's going to go onto the body of the pussycat, but this other end here we've got to try and make that as neat as we possibly can when we get up the top. Alright, so the stitches may not line up perfectly for you, but do your best. So mattress stitch all the way up, pushing as much of that in as you can to get it as narrow as you possibly can. And mattress stitch up the length of that. Pulling that white end up there so it lines up as much as it possibly can. And we're going to finish at the top where the grey ends, and then we'll turn the work around and we'll mattress stitch with the white down to the colour join. Nearly there. Pull that mattress stitch in. I've been pulling mine as I've gone along, but I will just try and pull it a little tighter. No, that's about as tight as it'll go. So I'm going to knot that off, and I'm sure you'll do a much better job than I'm doing with my mattress stitch here. There we go. And bury that grey tail down to the bottom, but keep it because we can use it for stitching on to the cat very shortly. So pull that through there like that. I looped it around, typical. There we go, pull that through there like that, and we can keep that tail. Now we're going to carry on with the white end of our tail. Do the same thing, but we've got to be super duper neat now at the top, as neat as we possibly can, to pull that around there like that, and that's quite nice. And a couple of little stitches there to tidy that up there, because this is the tip of his tail. Mattress stitch down then to meet the grey section. There we go. And I didn't put a tip on my my first kitten cat, and I thought when I was doing the grey one, I thought, oh, a nice little white tip will look really pretty. So you don't have to do a two-tone tail by all means. Just do it one colour to suit yourself. There we go. There's our little tail. So I'm going to tie off there now with a knot on the join, and I can bury the tail in the white end there because we don't need the white tail. So chop that off. Job done. And there's our little tail done. We just need to attach it now to the rear end of our little kitten cat. So let's attach the tail. I'm going to put my yarn tail back on the darning needle, and with the seam, there's the seam, I'm going to have it facing as if it was going down to the floor like that. Okay, and again we want it to be a cocky tail, we want it to stick up, so just above the cinched area of the bum there, of the bottom end, we are going to start attaching him about 1 centimetre up from the cinched area there, and just mattress stitch all the way around from the tail to the body, grabbing some stuffing if you possibly can, because it really does help with the stability of these projects, in my opinion and experience. I've done it without grabbing stuff in, and everything was a little bit floppy for me, so going back to my sewing, I thought, right, let's grab some stuffing, and it worked a treat. So in we go, grabbing that stuffing, and where the tail meets the body, exactly the same as we did the foot, that's where we stitch. So if the tail is meeting there, that's where we stitch. Okay, so we stitch there to the body. I pop it down on the table a sec because I can't hold it and stitch at the same time. Pulling that mattress stitch as we go, grabbing some stuffing. There we go, and as we're coming around now, hold that tail up in the air. I mean, if you want your tail to be in a different position, by all means have it in a different position. You don't have to have it sticking up in the air. You could have your tail wrapping around the side of your cat if you want to. And if you're starting out with a 22 pin machine and you're looking for projects to do, I think this is going to be ideal for you. Here we go. Now you can leave your cocky little pussycat tail sticking up, straighten him out a little bit, or you can give him a nice little bend on his tail like that if you want to, which I think is kind of nice. So I'm using a DK, and it's Signet's Pato Everyday DK in a black, and that's what I'm using for mine. So we're going to do the mouth first, and then I may carry on and do the whiskers as part of the same routine, okay, or you could do them separately by all means. So I'm going to come in from the side of my work here like that, and I'm going to come in right underneath the nose as close as I can come to the underneath of the center of the nose there, if you can see that. Okay, we're aiming for that kind of look on our little kitten cat. Okay, so we're going to go down there like that, pull that yarn through and leave a nice tail for tying off later. So I'm looking for a 6-inch tail there. Okay, now I've missed the mark there, so I'm going to try that again. So again, from the right hand side of the work, as close as you can underneath that nose like that. Let's try again, see if we can get it this time. There we are, leave that tail, and then we're going to go down about a centimetre down, and then over to the left like that, because we want to form a smile on our little kitten cat face. There we go. Now we're going to go back down there like that, and up in exactly the same place on the opposite side, as near as we can. Now you can mark this with pins first if you want to, and that is handy, but to be honest I forgot to do it. So by all means mark your entry and exit points with a pin, and I am indeed going to come and do that in 2 passes to make it a little easier to show you. Let's hope that this is a nice little kitty cat smile. That's not too bad at all, is it? That could be a little better there, if I'm honest, closer to the nose, but I will accept that for now. So all we need to do is to tie these off and hide the tails inside, and we'll move on then to doing the whiskers in a separate routine. So tie those off, and you can hide your tail then, going through the same hole so that knot gets pulled in. Pull that through like that. And the same with the other side. I'm going to snip that off. And the same with the other side. Push that through there like that. And that's our mouth detail done. So now we need to do the whiskers. So I'm going to use the remaining part of yarn that I had from doing the mouth. There we go. He's got a cutie little smile there. I wish it was a little higher up there, but I think the nose clip is probably getting in the way. So if I lift that up a little bit there, I might be able to improve it slightly. Excellent. So what we are heading for now is a kind of a sunbeam look. I'm going to try and improve on that because it was my first attempt, so let's see how we go. A little pussycat face, so we're going to aim for that kind of shape there, there, and there. Okay, so again, I'm going to come in from the side. I'm going to do my vertical one first. Sorry, my horizontal one first. Leaving the tail again. We're going to do a straight one, nice long straight one. That's about 1.5 centimeters long maybe, and go back up there like that, just above it. So there's a straight whisker, and then we're going to radiate outwards. Okay, so that's what we're going for there, radiate outwards, a little bit shorter, and then back down. So it's kind of opposite that line there. And my dogs are off again, like that, and then mimicking it down there, we're going to come up there like that, and to the left hand side, just to the right of the mouth, for the other part of the whisker, this side. There we go. Now you don't have to add these details if you don't want to. Okay, you can leave them off, of course you can. So we're going to do a horizontal one, and then 2 radiating out ones like sunbeams. Let's have a look at that, see how we go. Let's try and get them the same. Up a little bit. And then down there like that. And down there like that. Let's have a look. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. And then back out the hole where we started from. Like that. Pull that through. Yay, there we go. There's our little pussycat with his little pussycat whisky stripes. Okay, so we could put some little stripes up there as well, couldn't we? I'll have a little think of that now. But anyway, again, we just need to tie off. Exactly the same as we did with the mouth details. And we can say that our pussycat, kitten cat, is done. Find that hole, put the needle through, pull that yarn tail through there. We're going to do the same with the other one. And trim those off. Fluff our work a little bit. There we are, isn't that cute? So there's our little Roly Poly Kitten Cat for a 22-pin circular knitting machine, and completely made on a 22-pin circular knitting machine. So you don't need any other machine in order to make this project. And there's the two of them together. You can see the slight differences in the whiskers, so you can do whiskers to suit yourself or follow my lead. So thank you for tuning in once again. I hope you like this project. I think it's ever so cute. Don't forget to check out the Roly Poly Pussycat that I put up a week or so back. It's in my playlist, a few videos down from this tiny little kitten cat one. Alright, so go and check that out as well. And there's a written pattern available in Etsy for the large Roly Poly Pussycat as well, and a Roly Poly Piggy. So I'm rolling out these Roly Poly critters for you to enjoy. And don't forget, if you'd like to make a donation to a local no-kill animal shelter or charity, that would be very much appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, okay? And also, if you could share the video links in the Facebook groups, that really would help my channel a lot, and I really would appreciate that too. And being tagged is awesome, because I love to see your work. So I'll see you again very, very soon. Oh, and these two love each other already. They're little buddies. I think they're brothers and sisters, I think. Isn't that cute? So I'll see you very, very soon. Take care of yourselves. And don't forget, tag me with your little kitten cats. I want to see them in all their various different colours and cocky tails. See you soon. Bye. Hwyl fawr. Oh, and the Welsh for cat is Cath. And if you've got more than one cat, cathod.